Hi, this is Michael Venus at Centre Never Apart. Tonight we have our summer exhibitions vernissage, and one of the shows is called Femme Realness, a celebration of the effeminate male. I'm going to talk with the artists and explore their work, and I hope you enjoy it.
Hello, my name is George Stamos. I'm an artist. It's part of the show at the Never Apart Gallery. I'm very happy to be part of the Femme Realness show here. And the piece that I'm showing is called The Waiting Room. And in the Waiting Room is a video installation with two projected images creating a dialogue between each other, and then two benches for the public to sit at so that they're facing each other as they view the two videos. The content in the video is from a meeting that I had with Quentin Crisp in 1997 in New York City at the Pandora's Box S&M parlor in the Versailles room. And we decided to meet there and video our encounter because I wanted to actually invited Quentin to be part of a production I was doing. I'm a choreographer and a dancer, and I was making my first piece that was looking at older men's sexuality and exchanges between older men and younger men and intergenerational relationships amongst men, and looking for an elder and an effeminate elder. And Quentin was the perfect person to ask to be part of this. And in a typical Quentin style, he said that he couldn't guarantee he'd be alive or able to walk up the stairs on the day of the show, so maybe we could do a video. So I quickly figured out a place for us to video, and we did this video of really a casual conversation and interview, and what became a kind of performance for Quentin, who was sitting in this chaise lounge, or sitting in this throne, and I'm in a chaise lounge. And so that's the content you see in the waiting room. Quentin Crisp, yeah, I did notice there's a lot of Quentin Crisp content in the show, which is great. I think he's a really interesting figure, and he's a really interesting figure to look at historically because he basically didn't change for 80 years. He looked, I mean, he looked like he wore the same clothes, I think, pretty much, for most of his life. And he said the same sorts of things. But what did change is when he was in or out of fashion. And I feel like we're at a point in our LGBTQ and on community where we're having important dialogues about diversity and inclusion, and we're also looking more at queer history, and so we're in a place where we're not really I think morality swings through the last 100 years. You can see it's in the gay community too, where it's like really policed, and it's really about a certain kind of proper presentation of what it, trying to gain status quo acceptance. And then there's resistance against that also comes after that to show that no, we're not like that, we're different, and we're pushing the radicalness. And I think those things are really in conversation right now, and Quentin is an excellent figure who's always been challenging that conversation, because he was not in or cool, and then he was super cool and a hero, and then he was out again, and now, so I think he's definitely a great figure to be looking at. I think celebrating femininity within gay male culture is really important because well, I think it's important in all culture outside of gay culture as well, but I think that gay culture, I guess we could differentiate between gay culture and queer culture maybe on this point. That I think gay culture has been, we run the risk of gay culture becoming reduced to a certain kind of heteronormative, upper middle class or upper class white viewpoint on culture. And I think it's really important to keep expanding and including all the diversity within our community, and also to celebrate our otherness, and to celebrate that we are not fitting in necessarily to the mold. And so I think that's really important to keep alive.
My name is John Simone. I'm from Toronto, and I'm showing my late 80s New York nightlife legends show. Fabulous photos. The shots came about, I was part of the New York club scene. Right from the get-go, I moved to New York, and I started publishing photos in Details magazine, Stephen Sabin's column. And it was my job just to go out, whatever parties were happening, and find the fabulous people, the gorgeous people, the people that are out there and creative and fabulous. So that's what I did. And the people, so Lee Bowery was one of my biggest, if you can call it a muse, because there's about 5 people in my archive that I have maybe 50 or 60 shots of. And that'd be like Suzanne Barsh, RuPaul, Lee Bowery, Michael Musto, James St. James. And beyond that, there's people that you wouldn't know, maybe like John Sex, or who's the other one? John Sex. Who? Oh, yes, and Kenny, the most evil club doorman in the universe. Can't say that. But Kenny, yeah, he was right from the beginning. He was Suzanne Barsh's doorman in 1987, still doing it 30 years later. It's very relevant today because everyone's saying, oh, the 80s and the 90s are all coming back. But at the same time, that energy doesn't exist anymore. It's a mass market. The club kids turned into the rave scene, and too much money, too much drugs, it sort of kills the creativity. The club kids in '87, I call them the class of '87, and sort of the first 100 kids, and those people weren't drug addicts or drug dealers. They were students at FIT and at Parsons and NYU. They were film students. They were fashion marketing students. And as Mr. Alec brought them all together, then it still took 3 years of, media whoring around New York to sort of solidify. And I left in end of 1990, and the club kids still weren't really that big. They were like, nobody really wanted to deal with or didn't care about the club kids. I could never get published any of those photos in Details magazine, but Michael Alec had his own magazine, which I did all the photos for, so that was fine. Well, my work truly signifies femme realness. I mean, when you think about it, you go to New York, the center of the world, center of the gay world, and so many of the leading personalities, performers, hosts and hostesses, drag queens, they're all gay. So it's almost like femme realness is real realness. The Divine image was Divine's last New York performance before he died. And it was at the club I worked at, 1018, the Roxy, as a house photographer. I sold Polaroids to all the homeboys. That's how I really made my living. Sorry, for the first 2 years. So yeah, Divine was the original international superstar drag queen, and RuPaul was just the latest, but she persevered. And I found something out recently, that RuPaul kept going to New York or going to LA, would always ended up coming back to Atlanta until '87, when then she stayed in New York. But she would try and she would fail, and she kept coming back and doing it again. That's interesting. And so now RuPaul is beyond Divine could ever even imagine. And likewise, funny, RuPaul said, "Oh, they'll never give me the Emmy." Well, she got it a few months later. So even she's got respectability in a sense.
I'm Nicholas Contrera. I am exhibiting my photography work here. I'm in Femme Realness. Yeah, it's pretty exciting. I'm really excited to show my photographic work here. My work is based upon the gender binary and how the construct of gender should be messed with. The people I photograph are pretty particular, so they have to have something that pushes gender in a new form. If it's through a lens through New York club nightlife, or an entity through the club scene, they have gender roles, just not just looking like a drag queen who looks like a woman. It's somebody who really messes with gender and the construct of, what is masculinity, what is femininity as a gay male. I mean, I look at myself. I'm kind of living vicariously through photographing and doing these portraits of these people who have so much courage to go out looking to move past the gender construct of this is what masculinity is. So by photographing them, I'm able to play with my own femininity. I come off as a very butch, hairy, bearded male, but I'm allowed to now find the courage and find the feminine side within me and really play with that. And photographing them is something, if they're able to do it, there's something to be photographed. Like they should be remembered. And that's why I find the importance in that. I mean, they're my peers. I guess it's just I look at them and I'm like, what am I doing that like you have more courage than I do? Like it's something of having this self-power, this like my work is this romanticized talk about one's own self-expression, and they have the ability to do that, so why can't I have that? If that makes sense. Xander is a very special person to me. He is somebody who I believe is this entity of New York that needs to be remembered. He's like a New York unicorn. He's this being that you only see in New York. And I always tell people he's the modern day Lee Bowery. When you look at these club kids and you see what they're doing, you see emulates of like, you're doing what Lee did. You know, there you can see, they're like Lee Bowery. They're like these very old school queens. Xander is his own thing. He's this new, fresh entity of New York, and just like Lee, 20 years later we're still talking about him and how iconic he is. Xander is somebody to be remembered. Xander is somebody to still look back and be like, he was in New York doing this back in 2012. So having this relationship with him and working close with him and really documenting the entity of him, not him as like the real person, because there isn't a real Xander. He doesn't have that 9 to 5. He lives and breathes nightlife culture. He's an everyday nightlife personality, and that to me takes a lot to like really live that culture like that. So well, I've known Dax for a while, and he's followed my work, and then we've met about a year ago, and you guys found that the work I have just fits perfectly within the realm of Femme Realness. So it just all kind of fell together a year later, so there you go.
Well, my name is Jean-François. I'm also known as an artist as JF. I kind of revamped my name because my two first names are Jean and François, so it's JF. So I kind of like played with that to make JF the word that people see on my cards now. I'm originally from Gatineau. I studied photography in Cité Collégiale in Ottawa. That kind of pushed me to go further because I started to kind of know more about photography even before that. When I was a kid, I got my first camera as a Happy Meal at McDonald's. And I started to kind of discovered photographers like Herb Ritts, Guy Bourdin, which I really admired when I was a younger teenager. So that's what actually got me into photography. And when I was in school, I've discovered also David LaChapelle. So that's why I actually went into pop art, because I love creativity and colors and a lot of gay things. Overall, what I do as a photographer is I like to take a person and create an environment that represent the person itself. So that's what I did with most of my pictures, and the 4 pictures you see tonight represent those people themselves, because the one that I did qui représente beaucoup the movie Gentlemen Prefer Blondes is the comedian here in Quebec, Alex Perron. So he's gay, and like I decided to represent that through him because I know he's a big fan of Marilyn Monroe and Madonna, and she did Material Girl, which also takes the Gentlemen Prefer Blonde performance. So I took this and I wanted to kind of put it in a way where, we're in 2017 now, and it's okay that gentlemen also prefer blondes to the masculine. Well, I mean, the word masculine because the feminine takes an E, but anyway. As for the other pictures, there's one where you see the drag queen where she swipes the makeup off of her face, and I wanted to see, I wanted to show that, behind the makeup, there's always somebody else, and there's this freak that I know, which is Phoenix, and she's always this androgyne, and she always goes into kind of freaky makeups. And as a person itself, like as the guy Tommy, he's also this super calm and really genuine guy. So I wanted to represent that with the makeup that he's tearing apart from his face. The other one that I did, the Ice King, basically this one was a spur of the moment. I went up north, I saw the waterfall, and I was like, I need to do a photo shoot here. And I just went on Scruff actually to see if I could actually find a model, and that's where I actually found a model. So that was like a random one. As for the other one with the rainbow, when I saw GF, I was like, oh, he's a dancer. He's like to do a lot of gay things, and he has those movements that you see. You know the group that was really popular in Europe, that does a lot of the high heels dance things, and I think it's Kazaki, but I don't remember. So he does a lot of those kinds of choreography, and you see a feminine side and then a really gay side of that. And I was like, I have to do a photo shoot with you. And we went through a lot of concept, and the one that really went with his personality was painting a rainbow all over him and like bright colors all over him.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Andy. And Pansy S is a project that we took on together. We're both partners. We're partners in real life as well as in the business. And we started it 2 years ago as sort of a creative endeavor that we could do together. And in that...
Yeah, I mean, we initially started painting on vintage ceramics and got quite a bit of traction, and we're really having fun with it. And then we sort of morphed into creating our own pieces out of porcelain.
So with the name, we obviously wanted something really sort of in your face. And pansy is sort of a derogatory term that I've always sort of enjoyed. It's this delicate flower, but it's also really common and beautiful. And we took it and ran with it.
Well, initially, I guess we were just enjoying painting on the plates and painting pornographic material on the plates. But I guess we wanted to do something a little more creative and a little less two-dimensional. So I guess we decided, hey, it would be funny to put a dick on the wall. So that's where we started, really.
And it was just the next step to take it further. Like it had to evolve, and we love these vintage objects and little tchotchkes, and we wanted to make our own. Yeah.
We're really inspired by 50s and 60s like design and decorative arts, and so we wanted to sort of inject some gay into that. With our work, we try to be as gay and in your face as possible, and I think especially in these days where the political climate is such as it is in the US, we need to be visible and we need to be out there and to show our sexuality and to hopefully have our viewers see it who are from other parts of the world that aren't as accepted as we are. And yeah, I mean, that's sort of it.
So for us, Pansy S is really a celebration of the taboo and these sort of elements of gay culture and queer identity that were once in the closet and are now, like you said, very visible. And I think that is what Femme Realness is about. It's a celebration of all things femme. Their acceptance is a really hard thing to accomplish, but there's I think we live in these urban bubbles where we don't necessarily experience it the same way as we do in other parts. So maybe downtown, the center of Montreal doesn't have the same experience that you do in the suburbs. And with these elements of like extremely visible interior spaces that we're trying to help create, it makes it more acceptable to the general public, I guess.
I don't think change has happened, especially for gays, during Stonewall. Change never happened from those who weren't outwardly gay. I mean, the first people to throw stones at cops during Stonewall were the transsexuals and drag queens. So, you know, change is never had by blending in. You need to be visible and out there and loud and proud and throw the gay in people's face. And you know, like, it's a tough pill to swallow for some, but at least you're putting yourself out there.
And we have to, like, in our urban bubble, we have to keep in mind that there are people who might want to take that away from us, and to carry that on your shoulder.
When we started out, we never anticipated getting so much traction so quickly. So, I mean, we really put our stuff on Instagram, and people reacted as they did, and we're very thankful for it. Yeah, but we've got a lot of high-profile people following us and who have our work, and friends of high-profile people who've bought plates for their friends. I mean, Amy Sedaris was gifted a plate last Christmas.
Dan Savage and his partner Terry are big fans and have done a lot for us, helping. They sort of latched on in the beginning and saw what we were trying to do and liked the idea and helped share us, which was really great. Yeah.
And yeah, some of the RuPaul drag queens also. I gifted some ceramic cocks to Trinity and Peppermint a couple weeks ago. They were doing an event that I was involved with, so they both were ecstatic and loved them and said as soon as they got home they would be putting them on their walls. So that was really fun.
As far as press goes, we've had a lot of great exposure. We've been in the New York Times T magazine as well as most recently Paper magazine. It comes from both those publications sort of wanting to that edgy gay element, I think, that we sort of fill. But also we've sort of made friends with people who work in media and they want to do things for us and help us out. So we're working on a series of items that are more food related in their imagery. We have lots of fruits, lots of cakes and whipped cream, exciting things in terms of imagery, but we're working towards a big show during Art Basel in Miami this December. Well, last summer we hosted a small group art show with some of the connections that we had made over Instagram with other gay artists in Toronto, and meeting just some people who attended the show, they actually suggested Never Apart would be a really good fit just because of sort of the mission of the gallery and what you do for the queer art community. We're really happy to be a part of it.